Hi and welcome. We are now in part 2 of Bringing Up Baby. In part 1, we considered first, how do we define children today? And we looked at the role of the family as the first socializer. In this part, we're going to touch on several factors that influence the family structure. And we left off by beginning the family interaction heading, considering parenting styles. And you remember we did authoritarian, authoritative, uninvolved, permissive, no nonsense, and the attachment styles. Now here in part 2, we're going to explore family atmosphere, and that's followed by diversity in parenting. We're going to look at the indigenous, the immigrant families, and issues of disability. Lastly, but not least important, we will be looking at the other socialization agents. The first and the primary agent was parents. And we looked at the other influential, we're going to look at other influential agents in this part. Okay, let's get started. The family atmosphere is affected by the parents' own relationship, the level of conflict and conflict style, for example. The parenting style and conflict style with their children is really an important element, so much of the face-to-face interaction that sets the mood of the family. Not always bad, just something we experience without much thought. We will also look at the role of siblings and peers. So let's look at brothers, sisters, friends, foes, teachers. Significant difference between firstborn and later born children in outcomes such as educational achievement and income. Firstborn in family is typically advantaged. Later born children receive a little less quality time with parents and maybe more time being raised by older siblings. Older siblings partly replace parents in providing some of this quality time, which benefits firstborns because they have the opportunity to be teachers from an early age. Lone children have many of the characteristics of firstborn with siblings. Given that the sibling relationships are obligatory, meaning you don't have a choice, brothers and sisters must learn how to resolve conflict issues. Can also be a great warmth and affection between brothers and sisters. Sibling relationships can be one of the most enduring in a person's life. Have store of some memories in common with no other people but with your siblings. So what about the impact of parents on the sibling relationship? Let's look at that. If parents treat siblings as a single group without individual qualities, for example, the kids, children engage in more rivalry, and conflict. Favoritism can also create problems. The term parentified child is a child who takes on the adult responsibilities in the family. And this is often assumed by the oldest child. However, a child is underprepared to assume any adult family role. In this circumstance, both the parentified child and the younger children often do not develop into normal adulthood. Spanking is probably less effective in changing children's behavior than nonviolent forms of discipline. Conflict between parents increases the risk that children will have adjustment problems later in life. Parents' use of destructive tactics, yelling, name-calling, threatening, withdrawal, distresses children. No kidding. Children may feel more threatened by disagreements and are more likely to blame themselves for those parent problems than those whose parents are more constructive tactics. The amount of conflict between parents and teenager relates to parents' warmth and supportiveness. If hostile and authoritarian, conflict tends to escalate. If supported, family relations improve over the teen years. Another thing I want to touch on is routines, rituals, and traditions. These all usually involve little conscious thought and occur frequently, often daily. They can provide predictability, connectedness, and a sense of belonging. I'll touch on a bit of my morning routine to give an idea. When I get up in the morning, I get up at 6, I go out for an hour and a half run, I come back, and then I have a smoothie, and then I put the dishes away, I wash a few of the cat's bowls, I feed the cat, I let the cat out. But if that routine changes, like for example this morning, I went out and then I came back, my partner was already up, she let the cat out. The cat was like, "What? You're not the one that lets me out." So we establish these routines that become so automatic that even our pets understand what they are. So rituals are events that tell families, this is who we are. It's the we versus the them, creating boundaries. Thanksgiving, Easter, birthdays, anniversaries, and such holidays can help us shape who we are and how we celebrate. The family story can include their traditions, values, and opportunities. You have opportunities to teach morality and help shape children. Now we can look at, in our next little bit, the next section we're going to consider is diversity in parenting. And we'll start with looking at the indigenous families. Indigenous families strongly emphasize the interdependence of all life and have a strong sense of spirituality. Traditional indigenous societies recognize that the basic family unit of parents and children living together, but the family also includes a broader network of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. From the 1890s to the 1970s, many indigenous children were removed from their families and placed in residential schools. Now, this has affected indigenous children and families in need of this reconnect and reestablishing what it is to be a family and these family ties. Children in immigrant families, they may be pulled in two different cultural ideals with their attitudes raising concerns about families. North American society encourages independence and spontaneity, whereas many other cultures, such as the Chinese or South Asian, expect children to be more focused on their families and respectful of their elders. Immigrant parents typically hold different expectations for their children than Canadian-born parents do. Preserving their cultural heritage and language and passing it on through their children is important. In comparison to Euro-American parents, Chinese parents tend to have more of an authoritarian parenting style, which tends to have a positive outcome for Chinese children versus the Euro-American child. One possible explanation is that while Chinese parents are more likely to focus on the negative traits, they also emphasize that these can be improved upon through work and effort. So what about children with challenges? Having a child or having a brother or a sister with exceptionalities also affects socialization. There must be some adjustment to the changes in the family's rhythms as parents pay attention to special needs or of an exceptional child. Brothers and especially sisters may be expected to help with the child care and may be asked to include the sibling in other social activities. Some youngsters feel they must make up for what the sibling cannot achieve. Well, let's look at another group of influencers, and we'll look at the society at large. Since family is only one and the primary agent of socializing children, there are other agents of socializations. Agents of socialization, by definition, are the people, groups, and institutions that teach us what we need to know in order to participate in society. Now we're going to look at and explore the childcare industry, school, peers, and media. So let's begin with childcare. Young children in full-time childcare typically spend 9 hours a day or 250 days a year away from their parents. Nearly half of the Canadian children cared for by non-relatives receive informal home care. Children in high-quality care are readier for school and have better social skills, especially true for children of mothers with low levels of education. So one of those areas of socialization is children getting to be among other children. The next socialization agent is school. Children from the age of 4 or 5 spend large blocks of their time at school, which takes over much of the socialization process. Children learn to interact with the new authority figures, teachers, principals, guidance counselors, and with children their own age and in a larger number. It's one of the first times that children find out that they're not the only center of the earth. The first school years are important to children's self-esteem. Sense of belonging is undermined by ethnic prejudices among students and school staff, and a big impact on these achievements can be affected by what's known as the teacher expectancy effect. The impact of a teacher's expectations on a student's academic performance. One example of this is the Rosenthal and Jacobson experiment, where essentially teachers were informed that the class they were about to educate was either very exceptional students, when in fact they were randomly selected, or this was a group of average students and they were randomly selected. But what they found was, when they were told that they had a group of exceptional students who were really average students, those students did better on the outcomes, not because they were better students, but because the teacher's expectation was that they were better. And so that plays a significant role if we aren't more conscious about what we're doing and more engaged in the activities of what we do. All right, let's go to the next group. We're going to look at peers. Parents have more power over a child than their peers when a child is young. However, this control grows less as children become older. The neighborhood parents choose to live in and degree to which they are supportive of children helps shape the child's peers network. As children become older, the peer group assumes a greater importance. When children are rejected or ridiculed by peers, they may become isolated or antisocial. Often parents think of their peer relationships as negative and blame friends for being bad influences. Peers can make up for some of the child's negative experiences at home. The next group we'll look at in terms of social institutions is the media. The media are important socializing agents. Television, video games, computers, and other technologies such as cell phones and tablets, many young people devote more time to media than any other activity except sleep. The explosion of social networking sites are both increasing connections among people and reducing privacy. Young people are more likely to use the internet than older people. Whether media have a good or bad influence on children depends greatly on their age and their families. Parents have an important role in enabling and monitoring their children's use of media. On a slightly different note regarding media there is a term known as the digital divide. Among families with higher and lower access, partly related to income, parents and older siblings can help youngsters learn from and about media through their explanations and comments. Unfortunately, many parents don't make the time to do this. Now, another really big area is around child and parent happiness. As we know, everybody has unique experiences. However, what is important and what is reported in the text is research based on populations rather than any one of our individual experiences. So keep that in mind. The greatest happiness for parents often at the time of the birth of their child. Of course, everyone's excited. This can change as all of life's expectations kick in and the relationship takes a hit, especially if both parents work. Sleep is interrupted, communication lines can be frayed and tested, intimacy and sexual relationship can suffer. Parents experience the most stress when their children are teenagers. Some trepidation still occurs as our children prepare to leave home, or launch as it's known. However, we will look at this period of time in the family's life in week 7, when we look at chapter 7, the middle years of the family and the not-so-empty nest. All right, that's the completion of Bringing Up Baby Part 2, and so that's the chapter. There's a lot more to it maybe than you thought, and a lot more complexity in terms of bringing up a baby. We thought it was just us by ourselves and our family, but it's in fact a community, a society, even a nation. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye. See you in the videos.